Hey everybody, welcome back to the Cannabis Journal Club, where we review and interpret United States cannabis patents and scientific journals with concise overview of complex scientific literature in an understandable and easy to consume manner to expose the knowledge hidden in the scientific literature. We do not claim any medical utility, and of these government patents or scientific articles, we advise you to obtain your own copy of these public documents. We will also make them available when we can through the description in the description of this video. I'd like to introduce Dr. David Allen, and we're going to get into today's show. Dr. Allen? You're good to go, Dr. Allen.
Okay. Thank you, Marcus. Hi, I'm Dr. David Allen. I'm a retired cardiovascular and thoracic surgeon, and I'm self-taught in the science of the endocannabinoid signaling system. And today we're going to review my original article entitled Ignorance is Not Bliss. You can get a copy of this article by looking up Cannabis Digest and Ignorance is Not Bliss. And what happened was I was trained in cardiovascular surgery, but my career quit me in Mississippi. And so I obtained a medical license in California, and I moved to Sacramento and started a cannabis practice in Sacramento. And I thought to myself, well, I've not been taught about this science, and I had to train myself in it. And I can't be alone in this. So I thought I need to figure out what colleges, universities are teaching this science. And so myself and my 3 employees called 157 medical schools in the United States. And the study was only for the United States. And it should be repeated in other countries and should also include veterinary medicine schools as well. And so in the summer of 2013, we called 157 medical schools and asked the directors of the curriculum 3 questions. Do you have a department of endocannabinoid science with a director? Are you teaching the ECS as an organized course? Or is it even mentioned in any ancillary courses like pharmacology, pathophysiology, neuroanatomy? And the answer was only 13% of American universities teaching physicians even mention the ECS. So this is a science that is completely ignored by the medical facilities. And it's kind of like your doctor not knowing the circulatory system or the nervous system or any of its other major components. And so the ECS is a master control system that regulates all physiology and should be included in all medical schools. And you will find out that many times the patients know more about this science than the doctors do. And so my study was made entirely to expose the hypocrisy of not teaching this science to physicians. And so please obtain a copy of this. It's printed in Cannabis Digest under Ignorance is Not Bliss. And what we did was we called these colleges and asked for the director of the curriculum and what they were teaching medical students. And we found out a lot of resistance to our survey. I would call up and say, hi, this is Dr. David Allen. Can I speak to the director of the curriculum? And they would say, well, what's this about? And I would tell them, and they would be astounded because many of them had no knowledge of what I was speaking of. And so they were suspicious and were reluctant to give us any answers at all. And so we changed our tactics. And when my employees would call up, we would pretend that we were medical students or pre-medical students looking for universities to apply to that would have a special knowledge in this new science. And so that worked pretty well. And we started getting a lot of answers from the medical schools and the employees of the director of the curriculum. And we found that a lot of their statements showed extreme ignorance of this study and like, why would we teach this kind of science? This is a medical school. Why are you asking these kind of questions? And so please read the article. It has a lot of statements that we collected from the medical schools themselves. And so
Can I give a quick cliff notes on just what you've said so far? Because you're getting into you're almost at results. So what this article really, the sort of cliff notes of it is, number one, the significance of the endocannabinoid signaling system. It's considered a crucial medical discovery likened to the advent of sterile surgical techniques. It acts as a master control system, which, of course, Dr. Allen just mentioned, preventing disease and combating aging by managing physiology, cellular communication, and scavenging oxygen-free radicals. Then we get into the medical potential. The ECS has vast therapeutic potential, particularly through cannabis, which could really shift medicine from symptom management to disease prevention. It's implicated in reducing diabetes, stroke damage, heart attack scars, and combating cancer via tumor growth inhibition, reducing metastasis, and induction of apoptosis, which all of these things are keywords that you can go punch in and learn about. Next, we've got his survey methodology. He went to contact the curriculum directors at 157 U.S. medical schools, asking about the ECS department, organized courses or mentions in related classes, and immediately receives initial resistance, which led them to posing as prospective students to gather responses more effectively. The fact that they even had to do this, and then next, resistance and ignorance, responses ranged from how do you spell endocannabinoid to dismiss. We don't teach anything like that. Many schools showed unawareness or reluctance, which sometimes questioning the survey's intent. Now we're getting into the results, and I'll let Dr. Allen continue.
So our survey study proved that only 13% of American medical schools even mention this science, and nobody has organized courses. There's no directors or departments of this science. And so one mistake that I made is after we completed the study, we mailed copies of the studies to the directors of the curriculum, which didn't have the effect I wanted it to have. I should have mailed the copies of this article to the dean of the medical school, which would have more impetus in changing the curriculum to include this in their future studies. So this is exposing the ignorance of the medical school, which was caused, no doubt, from the drug war. So the drug war is trying to suppress this science. And so my entire life has been to try to expose the medical efficacy of cannabis. And it's fairly hard to do because there's no place that you can actually publish studies anymore regarding this. So this study needs to be repeated in Canada and South America and in Europe, and should include veterinary medical schools. And my suspicion is the veterinary medical schools will have more knowledge and they will be teaching this science more so than the human medical schools.
Due to the
So
political repression, basically.
exactly.
Yeah. Which the article argues these political barriers, not scientific merit. So we're getting into this dangerous thing where it's like something other than scientific merit is being responsible for the restriction of the ECS and cannabis research. Obviously, the government's classification of cannabis as a Schedule 1 drug creates a catch-22, which limits studying that could prove its safety and efficacy.
Yeah.
So how about some positive exceptions from the article?
Well, a couple of schools mentioned that they were doing some studies and research and would include this in their future lectures and stuff. But we're hopeful that this study that I've done, and I just did this with 3 employees, so this study could be repeated and will show that this is a science that's worthy of doctors and veterinary medicine doctors to learn about. And so that's my impetus. That's my motivation, is to have doctors learn about this so they know more than the patients that are coming to them with questions about this science.
So it's a call to action, right? The study urges medical schools to
Yeah.
integrate ECS education, comparing its neglect to historical resistance against sterile techniques. It suggests public pressure on deans to adopt this science. If you want to reach out to Dr. Allen and myself, please do so. You can reach out to me at bcbubbleman@icloud.com. And I believe Dr. Allen is calidoc215@gmail.com. Did I get that right?
Yeah, CALI215DOC@gmail.com. So I'd be glad to
Cali215.
answer any questions you have regarding this science. And cannabis is a nutraceutical that should be in the diet of all humans and animals. And maybe even more important than that, it's a metabolic necessity and maybe even a metabolic imperative, because they've proven if you block this ECS, that sperm cannot enter the ovum. So you need a functioning ECS for conception to occur. So without a proper functioning ECS, conception won't occur and may be responsible for many women not being able to full-term birth a child. So this has great implications, and you should put this cannabis and hemp in your diet. And actually, hemp may be more important, a medical substance to be put in your diet than even marijuana.
Yes, while breast milk contains both endocannabinoids and essential amino acids, and hemp is pretty much, cannabis is the only plant that produces all of the essential amino acids, including the 3 that children require for organ and bone development, as well as phytocannabinoids. So it's almost this breast-like milk substance that cannabis produces in 2 of its forms. And I'm glad you hit on the broader implications, because cannabis is framed as a nutraceutical with antioxidant benefits, not just a pharmaceutical, and it could potentially revolutionize medicine towards prevention. Dr. Allen questions why ECS study is suppressed, linking it to funding and political interest, which I don't think is a very, big jump. I think it's probably very accurate. Maybe we want to finish off with some of the historical parallels that your article references.
Okay. Well, there was a doctor in Vienna who was an OB-GYN doctor. And they had 2 hospitals that delivered children in Vienna, the doctor's hospital and a midwife's hospital. And the doctor's hospital had a massive death rate for birthing children. And the midwife's hospital had much better results. And so Dr. Semmelweis was doing an operation, an autopsy on a, a woman that had died during her childbirth. And what happened was his assistant got they were opening the abdomen, and the abdomen was full of pus. It's called puerperal fever, and was the cause of death for many women. And so when his assistant cut his hand, 2 days later, he died of sepsis, of the same thing that the woman had died from. So Dr. Semmelweis knew that there was something in the pus that caused this reaction and killed his assistant. And so he started scrubbing his hands with uh, uh, carboxylic acid, I believe. And it was caustic, and it caused people's hands to be red and inflamed. But he proved that by hand washing, that they lowered the infection rate in surgery. And so this was before microscopes, and nobody knew about germs. So this was before germ theory. And so he was washing his hands, and he was trying to get the other doctors to wash their hands, and they all objected to it because it wasn't known science at the time. And they actually ran him out of town because of this. And so just suggesting that you should wash your hands before surgery was a new and radical idea, and was rejected by the medical establishment. And so today, the medical establishment is ignoring the science of the endocannabinoid signaling system. And so we're trying to get people to understand that this is a super important science, and we want everybody to learn about this because it can affect you and the family, the people in your family. So please look at our other studies we've published on cannabis and heart attacks, showing that it decreases the size of a heart attack by 66%. Another article we reviewed proves that it decreases the size of a stroke by 50%. And so this is amazing information that could save the lives in people in your own families if you learn about it.
And you want to know what the world did to Dr. Ignaz Semmelweis? It wasn't just the medical establishment denying and ridiculing and mocking him for washing his hands, if you can imagine. But in 1865, the increasingly outspoken Semmelweis allegedly suffered a nervous breakdown and was committed to an asylum by his colleagues. Now, what happened in that asylum is he was beaten by the guards very badly. He died 14 days later from a gangrenous wound on his right hand that was probably caused by the beating. How insane is that? The guy who brought hand washing to just save lives ends up getting probably falsely accused of a mental breakdown by his colleagues, because they loved to do that back in the day when people stepped out of line. Forget about destroying your life. We're just going to put you in a mental hospital. And then in the mental hospital, they damn near beat him to death. And then he ends up gangrenous, and his hand, the very thing that he learned to wash to reduce this type of fever, is what kills him. It's so sick, and it almost parallels the way Dr. Allen was treated when he came out, just asking if they even taught about this process. So you can see we're dealing with a very unique group of people who are not willing to hear what is being said sometimes, so much so that they'll take it to the most extreme level. And that's what happened, unfortunately, to Ignaz Semmelweis.
That almost happened to me as well.
Of course it did. Of course it did. So listen, the call to action is, if you think you can help, we are going to be organizing this program again in the near future. We're going to acquire a bunch of interns, hopefully people that are in veterinarian and in the medical world in some way, shape, or form. And we're going to kind of build a team up, and we're going to start calling these hospitals again in these medical schools. And what we'll do is we'll make sure, I guess, that we create a really proper template to approach them so that they don't get the claws and the fangs out. You kind of got to come at them from the side angle, like Dr. Allen did. If you come at them too direct, you could end up in a mental hospital being beaten to death. And that, my
Yes.
friends, is Cannabis Journal Club. Anything else to add, Dr. Allen?
Thank you so much for this platform that we could spread this news. We want interns to help us, because if you help us do another study in Canada or South America, your name will go on a paper that will make history. You could have your name on in history by exposing that this science is not being taught to physicians. And we'll find out if veterinary medicine doctors learn more about this than their human doctor counterparts.
Awesome.
So thank you, Bubble Man.
Yeah, well, thank you. I love doing this project with you, and I'm looking forward to staying more consistent and releasing at least one of these videos a week. And I guess for that, we'll see you all next week on the Cannabis Journal Club. Thanks for watching. Thanks for your support. And if you can give a little thumbs up on the video and a subscription, of course, we would appreciate that as well. Thanks, everybody.